Alright, I'm Landon Schlungen. Today we're going to do the HTML tutorial. I'm just going to go through the w3schools HTML, and you can listen to it as a podcast or whatever you want to do. I'll try and go through it as quickly as I can. There's a lot of repeated material, but let's try and get through this. Alright, so easy learning with HTML, try it yourself. So whenever we run into these, we can try it ourselves, and then it will show up right here. That's pretty awesome. And then there's also exercises, and we can take a quiz afterwards. Introduction: HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's a standard markup language for creating web pages. It describes the structure of a web page, consists of a series of elements, and the elements tell the browser how to display the content. HTML elements label pieces of content such as this is a heading, this is a paragraph, this is a link, etc. A simple HTML document, they showed this already. But they also explain it here. Doctype HTML declares and defines this document as an HTML5 document. That's pretty self-explanatory. HTML tag, that's a root element of an HTML page. The head contains some meta information about the HTML page. Title gives it the title in the tab. Body is what is the content, so everything on this web page is in the body. H1 defines a large heading. P defines a paragraph. HTML element is made up of tags. So a tag, that's an element with the content, and then the end tag. And that is what a element is. Alright, some page structure, some history. Right now we're on HTML 5.2. Last release was 2017. You can also use Notepad or TextEdit to edit HTML files, but I would rather you use VS Code. If you ever want to edit HTML, get VS Code. It works like charm. You can set up an HTML file like this, and then right in here you can open it with Live Server, and it will open it up right here. And that's what our content was on our VS Code page. Moving on from editors, since we can also just use the try it editor in this website. HTML documents, we have this again, doctype declaration. HTML headings, we have H1, H2, H3, all the way down to H6. We have paragraph tags, which is smaller text. And then we have an anchor tag, which is an A, and you can put links inside there. So this is an href to this, this website. If I were to add a website onto there, like my Css URL, let's try this again, except replace this. And let's run it, and then try this as a link, and it will bleachs.org refuse to connect. So I guess they don't open it. But if we have like underscore, or no, what is it? Oh, if we have target of underscore blank, it should open up into a separate web page. So there we go. There it opened up my bleachs.org website. So yeah, target blank will do that. Moving on. HTML images, we have source. We have a source tag, alt tag, width and height. We can put images in here. We can also change the width and run that. It will make it wider. Height will make it bigger or smaller, taller and shorter, however you will say it. HTML source, and inspect an HTML element. We can inspect our web pages with right-clicking and then hitting inspect. So right here, this is the page I'm looking at. And when I hover over stuff, you can see it hovers over there. And different browsers have different code inspectors, and this is the one for Chrome. Firefox would have something different, and also Edge. Next. HTML elements, yep, H1, the 4 HTML elements, those, okay, we did that. We can do a break with a BR tag, so it'll break the line up. HTML attributes, so attributes are these things inside of the tags. So right here, href is an attribute, right here, source is an attribute, right here, source, width, and height are all attributes of this image tag. Alt attribute is an attribute of this image tag. So the alt attribute, what that does is say this image girl doesn't load, then this alt will show up as girl with a jacket. A lot of websites or editors require that. Style attribute, style, you can put CSS inline on your tag. So this P tag will have color red, so whatever text is in here will be red on the web page. Let's see here. Lang attribute, we can do English because we're English. Title gives it a tooltip. It's kind of neat. So like if you hover over it, it will show up as I'm a tooltip. So that's kind of neat as well. Yeah, let's zoom in a little bit. So anyone on mobile screens can see it pretty clearly now, hopefully. So this is good and this is bad. You need to have quotes for the attributes normally. Otherwise it's not going to work. It's going to think it's something else. This is not correct. Single or double quotes, usually all of mine use double quotes, so just use double quotes. If you want to put quotes inside of it, then use single quotes. So that's what we covered there, and we have an exercise. If we want to do it, we can, or we can skip it. Here's our different size headings. We have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, all the way down. H1 to H6. H6 is the smallest. H1 is the largest by default. Headings are important because search engines use headings to index the structure and content of your web pages. So make sure you actually do use them, because Google will look for that and then show your web page that way instead of not knowing what to do or what's important. We can also put inline styles on that if we want the H1 to be bigger than it default is. And an exercise, let's go on. Paragraphs, so paragraph is with the P tag, pretty simple. This will be shown in one line. If it's many lines in your editor, it will show as one line, or if there's spaces, it will also show as one line. Horizontal rules, HRs, those will actually make like a line in between by default. BR is a break, so this will break apart your line, so it will, be on separate lines. Poem problem, so this will be in a single line. If we want to have it display just like this, we have to use the pre-tag, and the pre-tag will keep the spacing. Here we have our style attribute to do color, font, size, and more, and its property value. This is CSS. If you don't know CSS, then we'll cover that later. But yeah, it's just CSS, background color, powder blue. It will make this powder blue then. And if it's on the body, then it will apply to everything underneath it. So, or actually this is background color powder blue. But if we did color of red, then it should go down onto those other elements. So there that goes. All right, example, here we did background color, blue, red, font family, we'll change the font family, font size, we'll change the font size, exactly, very self-explanatory. Text align will be center, so it will be centered instead of off to the left like it normally is. And let's move on. HTML text formatting. So this text is bold, italics, subscript, superscript, and that's done with these tags. I normally don't really use these tags, but they are helpful in some circumstances, especially the subscript and superscript ones. So we can do B for bold or strong for bold. They're basically the same thing. I and M for italicize, and small for small text. You can basically just set a style attribute on that, but some people like to use small. Mark will highlight it yellow. So that's what mark does. Del, it will give a cross through it. It will, actually I'll show that one. It will, cross it out. Ins will be inserted, meaning it is underlined. Okay, so ins is underlined. Sub is underneath. Super is over. Yes. So let's move on. Next. In this chapter, we'll go through block quote, Q, abbreviation, address, site, and BDO elements. I never use any of these, so if you do want to use them, you can, but they're not very important. I'll just go through this quick. Block quote. I guess it will give quotes. Q for short quotations. It will put quotes around this. Abbreviation. It will, I guess, show up as abbreviation. It's not really very much different. It's just like a dotted underline underneath it. Address it will show up as italicized. Cite, it will show up as italicized as well. BDO for bidirectional override. This says right to left, so this text will be written from right to left. It will actually be written right to left, so it's hard to read. HTML exercises, move on. You can add comments to your HTML source by using the following syntax. So comments are just a way to document your code. They don't actually show up on the web page. It's an exclamation point and then 2 dashes and then 2 dashes and then an arrow at the end as well. Add comments. So this is a comment, so it won't show up, but the paragraph will. We can hide the content. So say we're doing this. We have this is a paragraph. Another paragraph isn't showing up, but the paragraph 2 is showing up. If we want this to show up, we can just take away the comment and run it, and then it will show up again. And that's how we hide that. But we don't actually do anything like that. We don't actually use it in code. It's just for documentation strictly. Hide inline content, yada. Next. HTML colors, so these are a bunch of colors that we can put into our style. We can also use RGB values and also hex values, also HSL values, which is on a color wheel. The hex values are red, green, blue. So the first 2 are red, the second 2 are green, and the third 2 are blue, just like RGB, except in hex value. And we can do it like this, background color, and then just do RGB like that, or the hex value and HSL in there as well. So let's go next. HTML RGB and RGBA. So RGB is this, but RGBA adds an alpha, so it can be see-through. So in this case of 0, it's completely see-through. 1 is completely opaque. Let's move on. Hex, so hex values. So hex is another way to go like 0 through 10. So we live in the 0 through 10 number space, or 0 through 9. But hex is from 0 through F. So there's actually 16 values there. F is the largest and 0 is the lowest. And then 9 is like in between. 9 is in between, 8's in between. So the first value is bigger than represents a bigger number than the second value. Just like if this was like 45, 40 is way bigger than 5, or at the end. It's just like this. So B, the first B takes bigger precedence over the second B. Same with green and blue. And we can try it ourselves. So this is completely reds because it's the first 2 F's are red, and then the other ones have no values for the other colors. This one's blue because it's blue at the end. And this one's green because green is highly represented with the B3 in there. Gray is always going to be repeating patterns and stuff like that. Next, HSL is in a color. So hue is in the color wheel from 0 to 360. 0 is red, 120 is green, 240 is blue. So we can do the hue and it will kind of go around the color wheel. And saturation, will give it saturation, and lightness will give it lightness. So yeah, there's that. Whatever one you want to use for your colors is fine. All 3 of them get used. HTML CSS, so CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. CSS saves us a lot of work. It can control the layout of multiple web pages all at once. It formats the layout of a web page. You can control the color, font, size of text. It's basically styling the web page, and HTML is the structure of it. Inline CSS, here we have color blue. Internal CSS is with a style tag at the head, and then we actually just select our elements. So H1, we select that one and we give it a color blue. The P tag, we select it and we give it a color of red. External CSS, this is where we actually link a style sheet to it. So this styles.css is a different file on our system with all of our styles inside of it, which would be this. And then it actually gets affected into this H1 and P tag, or gets applied to them. That's what I was trying to say. And it's done with this .css extension. CSS colors, fonts, and sizes. We have blue, red, courier, font sizes. Yes, CSS border. We can do a shorthand border. So border 2 pixels wide, and have it be solid, and have it be the color powder blue. If we do that, that's what that looks like. If we want it to be 20 pixels around, then it will be very thick borders. Usually we never do that because it looks awful. CSS padding. Padding is always very helpful. It will put space around your element. If I want to make this bigger, then we'll have more padding around it. Usually we go for about 20 pixels or 10 to 20 pixels around each element, and that makes things look a lot better. Next up, CSS margin. This will be on the outside of your element, so 20 pixels outside of your element. So the space in between here is 20 pixels. If I make that smaller, like 0, then they'll be touching each other. If I go 20, then they'll space apart. And that is on the outside of the border. So padding is inside the border, margin is outside of the border. Link to external CSS is done like this. Link rel style sheets href to that style sheet on your system. Usually it'll be like /styles.css. And yeah, that's that. Moving on, links, hyperlinks, syntax. The anchor tag, have an href to it. We can do target attribute. So target, we can do self. So default, this opens the document in the same window as where it was clicked. Blank opens the document in a new window or tab. Parent opens the document in the parent frame. Top opens the document in the full body of the window. So let's try some of these. Blank. This will actually take me to w3schools right here. If I do parent, opens the document in the parent frame. Let's try that one. Let's run it and touch it. Did that do anything? Parent. Did I run it? Parent. Oh, there we go. It just, yeah, not exactly sure what that did. Okay, whatever. Moving on. I think it just opened it up on my web page. Okay. Absolute URLs versus relative URLs. So these are absolute URLs. This has the HTTPS inside of it and the domain name. These ones, they just have the slashes in them. So we're assuming that domain name is already there, and we're just going to that one. So that's that. Use an image as a link. You just put the image tag inside the A tag, or put the image inside the A tag, and then that whole thing becomes clickable, and you can link to it. Link to an email address, so mail to someone and send an email. Create a link that opens the user's email program. Yeah, so this will actually open up my email if I click on it, but I don't want to do that. Button as a link. Here we can do on click and then document.location. Link titles. Here we can do a title on it, so it will have a tooltip, I guess. So if I hover over it, there we have go to w3schools HTML section. Link to a page located in the same folder as the current page. And there's that chapter summary. Let's move on. Link colors. We can change our link color. Color green. We're going to give it a text decoration of none so that it's not underlined. You can make them all kinds of colors. You can make buttons links, or like this is a link. All you have to do is add background color and padding, and it will turn into a button basically. Next, create a bookmark in HTML. Use the ID attribute to create a bookmark. ID, and then if we do href_c4, it'll jump there. So this is actually pretty useful. So here we have a bunch of chapters in our ebook, I guess, and we can do jump to chapter 4, and it will actually put chapter 4 on top. If we jump to chapter 10, it will have go all the way and scroll automatically all the way down to chapter 10. So that's kind of useful. Next up, we have images. Here we have a few images and their alternate text. Image syntax, source, alt. Source is the URL, alt is the alternate text. Source attribute defines the path to that image. The value of the alt attribute should describe the image. Image size, width and height. You can either do it with a style or you can use the width and height attributes. Width and height or style. We suggest using the style attribute. It prevents style sheets from changing the size of images. So yeah, well, when in doubt, use the style attribute for image sizes. Images in another folder. So here this image is in another folder. Let's say I'm working in my VS Code and I have an image in here. I can link to it with slash whatever image it is. Images on another server or website. So here we have HTTPS. So this image is basically one that they found off Google, and you can just put that in there and it will show up there. Animated images, I guess you can put GIFs in there. You can put a link around it so that when you click on it, it will link to a different page. Image floating, float left, float right, never use that. You can have a bunch of image formats, JPEG, PNG, SVG, ICO, GIF, APNG. And let's move on. Next, image map. You can create clickable areas on an image. The HTML map tag defines an image map. An image map is an image with clickable areas. The areas are defined with one or more area tags. Try to click on the computer, phone, or cup of coffee in the image below. So here, coffee or phone goes to phone HTML, coffee goes to HTML, computer goes to computer HTML. Okay, so that's kind of neat. I actually did not know this. So you can do map area and then do a shape and then have chords and then have the href for it. So I actually did not know that, but that's good to know. It's actually kind of neat as well. Image is inserted using the image tag. And you can use map, hashtag work map. Oh, map, and you can put it anywhere on your HTML page, I guess, and it won't show up. It'll be kind of hidden and just kind of be injected into the image. It's kind of neat. Create image map. Yep. Map name. Shape equals rect. Yep. And then we put our chords around it. Circle. We put a circle. First, locate the coordinates, and then we have 44 for our radius, and then also for the phone, it's the same thing. But we can also use poly, contains several coordinate points, which create a shaped polygon. Here we're doing a croissant, so it's a bunch of these chords that make a big circle. All right, so image map in JavaScript. Function so you can also have an on-click event handler, which will cause this function to run, which is alert you click the coffee cup. So if I do this and I click the coffee cup, it alerts me because I ran this function. All right, that's cool. Next, background images. Here we can do style background image and put that image URL in there, and then it will be background image on this p tag. So let's see what that looks like. So this is the p tag, and then this is the background image. Okay. You would never usually put a background image on a paragraph tag, but I guess you could if you really wanted to. You can also put it in the style or on the body. So normally it goes on the body like this, and then we usually do like no repeat, and cover. Can I do cover maybe? Cover. Okay, never mind. I would have to get that off the top of my head here. Yeah, background repeat, no repeat. That's what they do. So I think what it is, you have to do background. So if I go here again, and I just do background instead of background image, then I can put no repeat in here. And then it's shorthand, and then I can also do cover. I thought that would cover the whole thing. Maybe not. Background cover, fixed. Do I have to do fixed, no repeat? Is that why? Fix. Either that or I have it in the wrong order. So cover, no repeat, maybe. Cover, no repeat. Nope, okay. Whatever. Or you can do them separate like this. It doesn't matter. Background stretch, background size, 100%. Maybe that's why. Background size. Background size, 100%. 100%. Okay, never mind. Let's just do no repeat and then try it. Okay, there's our very stretched image. You can learn more about that in the CSS part of this. Picture element allows you to display different pictures for different devices or screen sizes. So here we have a picture element with a couple sources and the image. So here we have media, min width is 650, so on a bigger image it will show image food. On a smaller image it will show a car. Otherwise it will show the girl. So let's try this. Here we're showing food, smaller image is a car, and even smaller image is a girl. So there it switches between them. So I actually did not know about that, but that's also kind of neat. When to use the picture element, bandwidth, if you have a small screen or device, it is not necessary to load a large image file, so then I guess you would want to do it like that. Format support, using the picture element you can add images for all formats. Alright, let's do this HTML favicon. So the favicon is that little image on the tab on the left of the title, and you can just put it right inside of the head and do link rel icon type image x icon and then href to it, and then it will show up. Tables. So tables are defined like this, table, and then your tr is like the table headings. So tr stands for table row, th is the table heading. So here we have the first table row with 3 table headings, and then underneath that we have another table row, but then with the data for those 3 headers. So if we try it ourselves, that's what it looks like, and they added a little bit of styling to it as well. Table cells, so TD is the table cell. It stands for table data. Table rows, TR stands for table row. Table header, TH stands for table header. Use TH instead of TD in those cases. So yeah, there's how you do an HTML table. Table borders. So you can add borders to the table. Border collapse, we'll collapse them. We can add a background color to it. We can add a border radius. We can make them dashed, dotted, solid, double groove, ridge, inset, outset, none hidden. You can set the border color property, all sorts of things. Table sizes. So here we have width 100%, and it will take up the full screen. Using a percentage as a size unit for a width means how wide will this element be compared to its parent element, which in this case is the body element. Set the size of a specific column, add the style attribute to on the th or td element. So the th, we want this one to be width of 70%. Or we can also do table row height with the th vertical table headers. I guess we can do th and then td jill. So we can put the headers on the left if we would like to. We can align table headers to the left or the center, or to the right even. Column span. We can do a column span of 2, and then it will take up 2 spots. Table caption. We can add a caption to it, monthly savings. Padding and spacing. So normally we would want to add some padding to these things. We can add padding to it, make it look a little better. So that definitely looks a lot better than it was before. So like if I get rid of this padding, it will probably look a lot worse. Yep. Padding bottom, padding left, padding right. You can set different values for each of those. Cell spacing. column span and row span. So column span is like that. Row span, I guess, would be the other way. Yeah. So that's how you can make some pretty unique tables. Table styling. Here we can add stripes by doing nth child even, and then giving a background color, nth child even or odd on the th or tr. And so that's how you do that. Make them striped so it's easier to read. HTML table col group. So I guess we can do a column group. Column span 2 gives us this thing where we have, I guess, this group here, and we can give it a different style. Alright, multiple column elements. We can do multiple of them. Empty call groups. I guess it's just empty, no styling on it. It's just a group. We can also hide columns with this, so style, visibility, collapse. I guess it will be hidden then. HTML lists. We have an unordered HTML list, and we have an ordered HTML list. Unordered HTML list is UL-LI. So UL stands for unordered list, and then LI is a list item. So this will make basically bullet points of coffee, tea, and milk. Ordered will be 1, 2, and 3 of coffee, tea, and milk. HTML description lists. I don't know what this is. I guess DT and then DD is indented. Okay, so that's what that is. I've never used that before. So there's that. Unordered lists. I already took a look at this. Ordered lists, other lists. Let's go block and inline. So we have block level elements. Block level element always starts on a new line, and the browsers automatically add some space before and after the element. A block level element always takes up the full width available, stretches out to the left and right as far as it can. Two commonly used block elements are p and div. Alright. So those ones are block elements. Here are the block level elements in HTML. So all of these guys right here. Very common is p and div, yes. Inline elements. So an inline element does not start on a new line. An inline element only takes up as much width as necessary, and span element would be that. So that's an inline one. Here's some different inline elements. Button is actually inline. That would be weird if it took up as much space as it could. Input is inline, image inline. If you want those to take up the full width, you have to do like full width or width of 100%, and then it will take up the full space. Div element is often used as a container for other HTML elements. You use divs a lot, so get used to this one. It has no required attributes, but style, class, and ID are common. When used together with CSS, the div elements can be used to style blocks of content. Yes, it can. The span element. So yep, span is inline. Give it some different styling. Let's go on. Classes. Using the class attribute, you can add styles to it. So here we have class city, and you can select it with your style tag by doing dot city, and then it will select that div and give it this styling. So tomato, background color, color of white, all of these will have that since they all have class of city. And if we look at it, that's what it looks like. In the following example, yep. Syntax for class is write a period character followed by the class name, then define the CSS properties within curly braces, like so. Multiple classes you can add with just a space. So here we have two classes on this guy, city and main. And you basically do the same thing with .main text line center. So now this one's a little bit different than the other two because the other two don't have main on them. Different elements can share same class. So here, these are different elements, H2 and P, but they can have the same class, so they will look very similar. Try that, that's what that looks like. Use of the class attribute in JavaScript. Class names can also be used by JavaScript to perform certain tasks or certain elements. JavaScript can access elements with a specific class name with the get elements by class name method. So here we can get the document get elements by class name city, and then we can loop through them and say display none. So if we want to hide them, this function, it will call my function, which is down here, and then it will hide them. Hit set their style.display equal to none. So there, now they're hidden. If I run it again, then they show back up. Alright, that's cool. HTML ID attribute. So this is a lot like class, except it takes precedence over the class attribute. ID attribute specifies a unique ID for an HTML element. I wonder if it will say that. It takes precedence, but it's denoted with a hashtag. That's how you select it, and you just put an ID equals for the ID. So here we have an ID of my header, and then we can add a style to it by selecting with hashtag my header, and then it will put some styles on it. Difference between class and ID: a class name can be used by multiple HTML elements, while an ID name must only be used by one HTML element within the page. Oh, I also did not know that. So I guess the ID of my header can only be used once, whereas class city can be used multiple times. So that's interesting. It has to be unique. HTML bookmarks with ID and links. HTML bookmarks are used to allow readers to jump to specific parts of a web page. And we did look at this already. Next, iframes. Iframes are kind of cool. The HTML iframe tag specifies an inline frame. An inline frame is used to embed another document within the current HTML document. So here we have an iframe, source URL, and then title description. We can set width and height on them. So here's a demo iframe. This page is displayed in an iframe, and it's a HTML, I guess. This is how you embed YouTube videos. I'm pretty sure they use an iframe. So there's that. We can add style and border to them. We can target for a link. So yes, here, target iframe A. If I do this, then it goes to w3schools. Okay, so that's cool. We can have a link target a iframe. That is pretty neat. Let's move on. JavaScript. Click here to display date and time. It's done with the script tag. So anything within the script tag is JavaScript. So right here we just have a paragraph called demo, and then we get it by ID, and we set its inner HTML to hello JavaScript, and that's why this shows up here, even though it's not inside of this paragraph. Taste of JavaScript. Yep. Get element by ID, and then you can set a bunch of stuff on them. You can also use NoScript. Defines an alternate content to be displayed to users that have disabled scripts in their browser or have a browser that doesn't support scripts. I have no idea how anyone would have that, but I guess it's out there for them. Alright, next. File paths. So these are file paths. Okay, so picture.jpg file is located in the same folder as the current page. So like if you're in Visual Studio Code, right here, this is my current folder. I can have an image in here, like image.jpg. Of course, there's nothing here, but if I did, then I could select it with like image and then give it a source of image.jpg, and it will actually select it and then display it on the web page. You can also have it inside another folder. So here it searches for the images folder first, and then it searches for picture.jpg, and then this one is actually one level up from the current folder with 2 dots in front. Absolute file paths is the full URL to a file, just like so. So if you want a Google image, you can just take that and put the full URL in it, and that should work as well. Relative file paths, yep, so this is when you have it on your system. And best practice, it is best practice to use relative file paths if possible. And I say the reason for that is because you're always going to have your relative file. You won't always, like Google can always like delete their images and stuff like that, and then you won't have that image anymore. So that's a good reason why to use relative paths. The head element, we can put a bunch of stuff in there like style, meta, link. We can also put some script tags in there and base. So the title is what shows up on the tab. We can put style, link. Link element defines the relationship between the current document and an external source. So right here we're doing a CSS file to it. The meta element, we can just set some meta information for it. So like char set UTF-8. We can define keywords for search engines. We can define a description for a web page, the author of a web page. We can refresh the document every 30 seconds. Setting the viewport to make your website look good on all devices. With device width initial scale 1.0. I wonder what the default is for VS Code. Yeah, we just do with device width initial scale 1.0. So we do that viewport thing. So that's kind of neat. Setting the viewport, yeah, it actually does that by default in VS Code. Script element. So yeah, we can also set this in the head. And then the base element specifies a base URL and or target for all relative URLs in a page. Okay, so this base is w3schools.com. Makes sense. And then anything inside of here first goes here, and then it goes to these, I think. So that's kind of cool. Chapter summary. Next. HTML layout. Websites often display content in multiple columns like a magazine or a newspaper. Yep, they do. That's for sure. Right here we have a column. We have the main content right here. We have a column on the right. So that is definitely true. We have a header as well, a nav bar. And then we can define these with semantic tags right here. Header, nav, section, article, aside, footer, detail, summary. These are all basically div tags, except when you look inside the code, you'll see these, and then it'll explain kind of what it's doing, what it's supposed to be doing. And then there are 4 different techniques to create multi-column layouts. Each technique has its pros and cons. We have CSS frameworks, we have float property, flexbox, and grid. Never use float. We use flexbox and grid a ton, so make sure to learn that. You can also learn Bootstrap, which makes things a lot easier as well. We don't have to learn float. Float is weird. Using a flexbox, you can learn more about it in the CSS flexbox chapter, and then also with grid. HTML responsive, so we want all our websites to be responsive to different page sizes. So in this case, if I inspect this web page and I start shrinking this down, you see how the website responds to that and changes, like the nav bar isn't showing as much. And when I widen it out, then it starts showing up more. And this became collapsible. Whereas if it's full, then it comes out all the way. So that's what it means by being responsive. Setting the viewport. So yeah, we do that. Responsive images. If the CSS width property is set to 100%, the image will be responsive and scale up and down. So this one, I guess, will scale nicely. So if I do this, see how it gets bigger and smaller? That's nice. Using the max width property, so here we can set a max width on it, and then it won't get any bigger than that when we widen it out, but it will get smaller. We can set different things depending on the width. So here I guess we have a picture and a source media as well. So based on different screen sizes, we show different flowers. Responsive text size, font size of 10, view width, so VW is view width. So I think 10 is 10% of the view width. And it will get smaller or bigger based on how big that is. Media queries. Yep, that's done in CSS. So basically, once the screen becomes 800 pixels or less, 800 pixels or less, I think, then it will turn into a, if it's width of 100%, yeah. So right now it's 20%, 60%, 20%, but then once it hits 800 pixels, then it will be 100% for width on all three of them. So there's that. Responsive web page, full example. We can see what they did for that, but I'm going to skip it. And then Bootstrap is actually a external CSS sheet that we can use for free. And all we have to do is link to it right here. We do maxcdn.bootstrapcdn.com. You can also look up their website and then take it from there. And then you can start using their CSS classes. And a bunch of their CSS classes are like container, jumbotron, row. You can do column small 4. And then that way your CSS is kind of hidden, but you get to use their CSS instead of having to write your own. It's actually very nice, especially to get things up and running very quickly and to look decent. So if we try this, this is what Bootstrap looks like. They have different colors as well, so I think they have they might have background danger and it will turn red. So that turned red there. I think maybe if I turn this background into primary, it will turn blue. Yep, so that one turned blue then. So that's you don't see the CSS here, but it is actually there using Bootstrap. All right, next. Computer code. I guess we have code here. It just shows as like a different font and style. It's nothing really that special. KBD for keyboard input. So the style of that is like so. Never really use those. SAMP for program output. File not found. Not very important, this stuff. var for variables, I guess. So I guess you can define that inside of your HTML. I'm guessing this stuff will help like Google and search engines, but I'm not sure if they're really needed. Next. Semantics. So yeah, here's semantic ones. Form, table, article. They're just like div, but they tell us more about what we're writing. So a bunch of these are article, aside, details, fig, caption, figure, footer, header, main, mark, nav, section, summary, time. Section elements, it's like different sections in your content. You can use the section element. Typically have a heading. So section has a heading WWF, the Worldwide Fund for Nature. And here's another section. Article element specifies independent self-contained content. Okay. Forum posts, blog posts, whatever. This stuff is not super important, but sometimes it's nice to use these instead of divs all the time. Especially with nav element, make sure to use nav instead of a div. Aside, I've never used before. Figure and fig caption, I've never really used before either. But I'm guessing that'll be like for graphs and stuff. Style guide, always declare document type, use lowercase element names. Yes, please use lowercase element names. Close all HTML elements, make sure they have a closing tag. Like so. This would not be good at all. Use lowercase attribute names, so make sure this is lowercase. I always quote attribute values, I always quote these, that should be self-evident. I always specify alt width and height for images. So I always specify an alt and then also the width and height of the image. Spaces and equal signs, make sure to not have spaces around the equal signs. Avoid long code lines, so make sure to avoid long code lines like, you know, p times, or lorem, I don't know, lorem ipsum, lorem 500. So right there we have a long line. Trying to avoid that, but if I save, then it should make it better because I have an auto formatter on this thing, so that's pretty cool. Blank lines and indentation. Do not add blank line spaces or indentations without a reason. For readability, add blank lines to separate larger logical code blocks. Add 2 spaces of indentation. Do not use the tab key. A bunch of this stuff you'll have an automatic formatter for, but it's good to know, I guess. Never skip the title element. You must have a title, especially in your header for your tab. Omitting HTML and body. It will validate without HTML and body tags, but it is strongly recommended to always add those in. It can produce errors in older browsers, omitting HTML, but can also crash DOM and XML software. So the head tag can also be omitted. Browsers will add all elements before body to a default head element. So if you don't have it, then all this stuff will be in the head, I guess. Close empty HTML elements. Make sure you have, well, I like to have the closing tag for self-contained elements like this, but I guess you can also do it like that. It's fine. Add the lang attribute. So make sure to have English US or whatever your language is. Metadata. Have meta as well of UTF-8, whatever character set you're using. Setting viewport, also have that. So VS Code sets us up pretty easily with that stuff. So like if I deleted all this and just do exclamation point, Emmet will auto-generate this stuff. So that's very nice. That's why I would highly recommend VS Code. HTML comments. Here's a comment and a long comment. So using style sheets. Use simple syntax for linking to style sheets, like so. Long CSS rules should be written over multiple lines. Short CSS rules, I guess, can be one-liners like this. Loading JavaScript in HTML. Here we have a script tag that links to a JavaScript file. Accessing HTML elements with JavaScript, like so. They'll produce different results because it is demo versus lowercase demo. Use lowercase file names. File extension should be .html, .css, and .js. Differences between Html and HTML. There are no differences, but we want to use HTML. Please use .html. Default file names, like so. Okay, next. Entities, HTML entities. If you use the less than or greater than signs in your text, the browser might mix them up with tags. Yes, that is very true. And in this case, the way you do less than is you do an ampersand, LT, colon, or semicolon. So if I do that in here, so right here, I can't do like a tag in here because it gets confused. So if I want to have that less than in there, I do ampersand, less than, and then colon. And then when I run this, it will actually show up as a less than character. So let's run this quick. And then there's my less than right there. So that's what that is. And I wonder what this one is. What is that one? Let's check it quick. Save that. And it is also less than. So there's 2 different ways to write less than, LT colon or number 60 colon. Non-breaking space, so NBSP. Sometimes we use that, not super often, but it is there. So yeah, there's less than, and then if you ever need to find a code, you can just look it up. So it's not super big deal. To do an ampersand, you do amp. So that's kind of cool. All right, combining diacritical marks. So I guess these are some other ones. Okay, cool. Next, symbols. We can also do symbols with it. So here we have a euro, or there's some other ways to write a euro. All right, and then some tables for all this, some Greek, do alpha, beta, gamma, delta, some other entities support, copyright character. We have spades, clubs, hearts, diamonds. So that's kind of cool. Next, emojis. You can also do emojis. Normally I like to do emojis just with my computer. I can put emojis directly inside my code. Like, thought I had a, what's my shortcut? Control space? Option space? I have no idea. But normally I can just do emojis directly in the code, or I guess you can do these. So it's a bunch of numbers, I guess, with an ampersand in front. So that's pretty cool. Char set, UTF-8, character sets. So there's char set. So if you ever use char set, you can use that. URL encode. URL is another word for web address. It can be composed of words or an internet protocol, an IP address. Most people enter the name when surfing because names are easier to remember than numbers. So I guess this one is for w3schools. So if I want to find w3schools, I can just do that, and then it will bring me there. I think this one is w3. No, maybe not. Either that or my computer's just super slow. Oh well. Let's just move on. Uniform Resource Locator, that's what URL stands for. We have the scheme, which is HTTP or HTTPS. Prefix defines a domain prefix, usually www. Domain is the w3schools.com. Port default for HTTP is 80. The path defines a path, so that's the slash part of it. And the file name defines the name of a document or resource, so that's the HTML URL encode.asp. Alright, so that's kind of cool. We can try it ourselves. Ascii encoding examples. Ascii encoding. HTML versus Xhtml. What is Xhtml? It stands for Extensible Hypertext Markup Language. It's a stricter, more XML-based version of HTML. Is HTML defined as an XML application? It's supported by all major browsers. Why Xhtml? It's a markup language where all documents must be marked up correctly and be well formed. It's developed to make HTML more extensible and flexible to work with other data formats such as XML. Okay, if you want to study XML, please read our XML tutorial. The most important differences from HTML. Doctype is mandatory, HTML is mandatory, all this stuff is mandatory. They must be lowercase, quoted, forbidden. So I guess that's pretty cool. I've never really used Xhtml, I just follow the standards. But if you want to, I guess you can use this. Next, HTML forms. So here's a form. You can put in user input. So that's what a form is. The form element is like a div, except it denotes the form. Input element, we can put input things in here. So the input is actually what makes the box. Right here we have an input of type text, ID, fname, name, fname, value, John. So right there we have John in there. If I set this to Joe, then it would be Joe. I can also write in here and that becomes the value. And same with the other one. This can also be of type number. So if I do number and then do value of 1 and run it, then it's value 1, and I'll also get these like arrows here on the sides. Label elements. So one thing about the label elements, the reason why we have that is because when I do label HTML and I click on that word, then it becomes selected. I don't have to click directly on the dot. I can click on the label and then that will work as well. So that's why label is useful. Checkboxes. So there we just do type checkbox for an input. And then if we have these all with the same name or same ID or 4, how are these connected? These ones are connected by name, favorite language. Yeah. The submit button. So we can have a button on here that submit. So input type is submit, value submit. So that becomes a submit button, and it will execute this page. Name attribute for input. So yeah, make sure they're the same names. For fname, must have a name attribute to be submitted. If the name attribute is omitted, the value of the input field will not be sent at all. Alright, cool. Form attributes. Here we have for, type, ID, name, value, for, and all that stuff. Target attribute specifies where to display the response that is received after submitting the form. So right here we have target blank. Good to know. Method attribute is get, post. So normally with a form it would be method post. Autocomplete attribute. Here we have autocomplete on. So I guess this is where you click on it and then stuff shows up. So that's pretty useful. No validate attribute. So I guess we don't have to validate it. Form elements. So here's a bunch of the form elements. We have input, we have label, select, text area, button, field set, legend, data list, output, option, opt group. Input elements. So here's the input, and these can be a bunch of different types. The select element, and then we put options in there. So this is where you have a select box like so. You can check, pick one and then submit it. So that's that. We have visible values. Use the size attribute to specify the number of visible values. So I guess size 3, so then it'll only show 3. I'm guessing that's what that does. Oh, 3 at a time. Okay. So that's kind of cool. Allow multiple selections. Here we just put multiple on here, and then we can like shift click them to select multiple. Text area element is a larger text area than just an input box. So right here, and we can also resize it like so. All right, button element, pretty self-explanatory. It's just a button, and then when we have an on-click event handler on it, then that will execute. Field set and legend. Field set element is used to group related data in a form. A legend element defines a caption for the field set element. All right, so field set legend, it's just for grouping stuff, I guess. So here's personalia, and it's got a border around it by default, actually. So that's kind of cool. The data list element specifies a list of predefined options for an input element. So data list, ID of browsers. Let's see what this does. Specifies a list of predefined options for an input element. So, oh, okay. So I guess it's basically like auto-completing it, but we can also put in whatever we want. So that's actually pretty cool. I like that a lot. I've never used it before, but maybe I should start. All right, so output element. The output element represents the result of a calculation, like one performed by a script. Okay, output. So here's the output. All right. Next, input types. So here's all the input types. We have button, checkbox, color, date, datetime, local, email, file, hidden, image, month, number, password, radio, range, reset, search, submit, tell, text, time, URL, and week. I wonder what color is. Let's try the color one. What is that? Input type of color. Let's see what that does. I'm interested. Okay, so you can select the color. Oh, okay, so that's the color input. Input type text is like that. Type password is so that it will be hidden when you type it. That's very useful for passwords. Input type submit will be a submit button. Okay, so I submitted that. We can also do input type reset. So I guess if we reset this, then it will reset it back to its normal values. Okay, interesting. Input type radio is the radio buttons like this, multiple choice. Input type checkbox, multiple choice. but you can select more than one. Input type button. Again, you can like do an on-click event handler on that. Input type color. You can select the color. Input type date. You can select the date. Oh, okay, that's cool. It actually comes up with a date picker by default. That's actually really useful. Min and max, so you can put a minimum and a maximum date on your input, or even on your number input. Datetime local. So what is datetime local? Like so. Also, we can add time to that. Okay, cool. Input type email. This just validates, make sure you have the @ and like .com on it. Input type file. Here, you can, if you click on it, it will go onto your machine and try and choose a file. Here, I can select this one and and then I can submit it. So that's very useful for files. Input type hidden. We can do type of hidden. So I guess it won't show up then. Yep, so that one is not showing up. Should be value 3487, but it's not showing up. Okay. Don't really know when to use that, but I guess it's there. Input type month. Here we can add a month, I guess. Just a month. January through December. Cool, cool. Input type number. There we can set our min and max 1 and 5. I already showed you that one. Okay, input type range. This one's kind of cool. You can set a range like so. Sometimes you'll use that. Input type search. So search, I guess we can do that, and then it has an X for canceling it out. Okay, so that's what search is. It's cool. Type tell. So we can put phone number and then have a pattern, so then it has to match this pattern for the telephone. Time, I guess just the time, and we can just select it like so. Okay, cool. Input type URL. I'm guessing it will. It says please enter a URL, so it does validate a little bit. So we have to like probably put HTTP on it and like / www.w3schools or something, and submit that, and then it will actually do it. Input was received as legal input. Darn it. Oh well, I don't care. All right. Input type week, so I guess that's just, you can select a week. Nice. So there's all the input types. Input attributes. So here we have some attributes, value, name, ID type, read only attributes. So I guess that's only read only. You can't edit it. Disabled is basically also read only, except it will be blankened out a little bit, like so, because it's disabled. Size attribute, we can make it bigger, longer. So that's size. The max length attribute, max length, so max length of characters. That's useful for pin, I guess. Min and max attributes, yep, for numbers, multiple attributes. In case you want to select more than one file, we can do multiple. Pattern attribute, like so. Placeholder attribute. Placeholder is like, this will be already here for you, but when you click on it and start typing, it disappears. A lot of websites have placeholders. Required attribute, make sure it's required before you submit it. The step attribute, so here we have a step of 3, so when I click this, it'll step up faster. Autofocus attributes, so it will autofocus on here. I didn't have to click into it, I just autofocused in there. Height and width, make sure to have height and width on these. That's also pretty useful. Alright, so input type image, I guess, and it has a height and width. Cool. Alright, yeah, the list attribute, data list, predefined options for an input element, autocomplete. So we can set autocomplete on for all of these, but then for individual ones, you can also set autocomplete to off. So that's pretty cool. All right, input form attributes. So we have this form, and we have inputs on them. Form action attribute. So yeah, the action will do that. Form type attribute specifies how the form data should be encoded when submitted. Form method post. Form target. You know, I've never used any of these because I use frameworks. I don't use this vanilla HTML JavaScript stuff. So this stuff is not that important. I'm sorry. All right, let's just move on. HTML graphics. So we have the canvas. So right here, a lot of people can make games with the canvas. Here's a basic empty canvas, and we can add some stuff to it. We can draw a line by doing document.getElement by ID, my canvas. So first we have to have this canvas in our HTML, and then we can select it using JavaScript, and then we can get its context, and then we can draw some lines and do some stuff with it. We can draw a circle with it, like so. We can draw text by doing ctext.font and do fill text of hello world. A bunch of different things. We can draw a linear gradient, circular gradient, draw an image, all sorts of stuff with Canvas. An SVG is basically like an image except a SVG, and it has several methods for drawing paths, boxes, circles, text, and graphical images. So right here we put a circle inside of this SVG. We can put a rectangle into it, a rounded rectangular, a star, polygon, a logo. So, okay, so there's that logo. Differences between SVG and Canvas. SVG is a language for describing 2D graphics in XML. Canvas draws 2D graphics on the fly with JavaScript. All right, so that's kind of cool. HTML media. What is multimedia? Multimedia comes in many different formats. It can also be anything you can hear or see, like images, music, sound, videos, records, films, animations, and more. Web pages often contain multimedia elements of different types and formats. Browser support. First, web browsers had support for text only, limited to a single font and a single color. Later came browsers with support for colors, fonts, images, and multimedia. Multimedia formats. We can do audio or video, MP3, MP4, MPG, WMV, AVI. Common video formats, MP4, MPEG, AVI, MV. We have Move, which is QuickTime, WebM, MP4. Common audio formats, MIDI, RM, WMA, AAC, WAV, MP3, MP4, as well as also audio, I guess. Next, video, so we can just put a video in here. So right here we have a video tag. We put the source of the video in here and a video courtesy of this. All right, so there's that video that shows up. So that's nice. HTML video elements. You can use this video element to do that. You can have controls on it. We can have autoplay. We can have muted, autoplay, all sorts of stuff. So that's video for you. We can do audio with the audio tag. Kind of the same thing. You have to have an audio file for this to work. And then it has controls and all this other stuff. So let's see if I play this. Oh, it gives a horse sound. Yay. So that's kind of neat. We can also autoplay it, so when I run this, it'll autoplay. All right. Muted after autoplay, stuff like that. Okay, we can do plugins, looks like is next. HTML plugins, an object. Element is supported by all browsers. It defines an embedded object within an HTML document. All right, we can do embed adi.jpg. An embed element can also be used to include HTML in HTML. All right, so right here we're embedding snippet.html into this HTML document. All right, so that's kind of neat. So if we want multiple files of HTML, we can just put that in there, I guess. So that's kind of cool. YouTube video, playing a YouTube video in HTML, define an iframe, and then we put the source in there. So right here, there's, I guess, a YouTube video right here. That's an iframe with the source to it. All right, so that's cool. and then you can autoplay it and mute, I guess. Autoplay and mute to the URL, and that will do that. Loop, you can also loop it forever. YouTube controls, we can add controls to it. Alright, so that's cool. HTML geolocation API, locate the user's position. Try it. It will ask if we want it to know my location and allow or block. Using HTML geolocation, I guess it's done like this. We can do navigator.geolocation.get current position. So navigator comes with JavaScript by default, and that's why we can use it. So that's cool, I think. Yeah, I don't see anything else that would say we can't use it by default. Handling errors and rejections. This is a switch case statement. Location, specific information. Yeah, let's just go through this. Quick, drag and drop. Any element can be dragged and dropped using this API. Here we have drag and drop, I guess. Drag the W3 image into the rectangle. Oh, that's kind of cool. I can just drag it on. Make an element draggable. Image draggable equals true. So just add draggable onto an element. Alright, cool. And we can do on drop and stuff like that. Web storage. What is HTML web storage? Can store data locally within the user's browser. Window.local storage and session storage. So this stuff you can actually use quite a bit. And so that some data stays on your browser instead of disappearing when you refresh the page. Local storage object stores the data with no expiration date. The data will not be deleted when the browser is closed and will be available the next day, week, or year. But the session storage does have an expiration date on it. Alright, so that's cool. Only for one session, the data is deleted when the user closes the specific browser tab. Okay, so that's the difference between local storage and session storage. Web worker, what is a web worker? It's a JavaScript running in the background without affecting the performance of the page. Here we can start a worker and it starts counting, and then we can stop it. Let's see what this worker is. It's just this and type of worker, new worker. So I guess you define a worker with new worker, and then it's this other JavaScript file that starts executing. Alright, it's kind of neat. And then you can do stop worker, which is w.terminate. Alright, never used that before. Check web worker support. So yeah, I guess that checks make sure the browser supports it. Create a web worker file. Yep, so there's my web worker file. Create a web worker object, stuff like that. Full web worker code example. Cool, cool. Html SSE. Server sent events allow a web page to get updates from a server. One-way messaging. New event source, and use PHP for that. Server sent event support. Make sure we have it. Alright, never used that before. HTML examples. So here's some examples, and then we can do our quiz, exercises, certificate, summary, accessibility. And then there's a bunch of more documentation. But yeah, there's HTML for you from W3schools. I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully I didn't take too long to go through this. I can do the quiz if we want to. What does HTML stand for? Hypertext Markup Language. Who is making the web standards? I'm pretty sure it's Google, or it's the World Wide Web Consortium. I don't know. Let's do that one. Choose the correct HTML element for the largest heading, H1. What is the correct HTML element for inserting a line break, BR? What is the correct HTML for adding a background color? Style background color yellow. Choose the correct HTML element to define important text, strong or bold. Choose the correct HTML element to define emphasized text, so EM or I. What is the correct HTML for creating a hyperlink? a href to this URL, that would be a hyperlink. Which character is used to indicate an end tag? That would be the /. How can you open a link in a new tab browser window? By doing target blank, like so. Which of these elements are all table elements? All table elements. So table head, tfoot, table body, tr, table row, td. I'm pretty sure this one is table data. Yeah. Inline elements are normally displayed without starting a new line. That is true. How can you make a numbered list with ordered list? OL. How can you make a bulleted list with unordered list? UL. What is the correct HTML for making a checkbox? Input type checkbox, like so. What is the correct HTML for making a text input field? So text type of text, or input type of text. What is the correct HTML for making a drop-down list? Input type. You can actually do a select input, so select with options on it. What is the correct HTML for making a text area? Like so. It's not an input type, it's an actual tag. What is the correct HTML for inserting an image? Image source, image.gif with an alt. Pretty sure this would work fine. Yes, source alt, but this one would also work. Why are these the same? What the fudge? Oh, I know, this one's image, like spelled out. Yeah, the first one's good. What is the correct HTML for inserting a background image? We can do body style background image like so. An iframe is used to display a web page within a web page. Yes, that's true. HTML comments start with that and end with that. That is true. Block elements are normally displayed without starting a new line. Block elements are normally with, yes, that's true. Which HTML element defines the title? Actually, I should have went back on that other one. Oh well. Which HTML element defines the title of a document? Title. Which HTML attribute specifies an alternate text for an image? Alt. Which doc type is correct? Doctype HTML. Which HTML element is used to specify a footer for a document or section? Footer. In HTML, you can embed SVG elements directly into an HTML page. That is true. What is the correct HTML element for playing video files? Video. What is correct for playing audio files? Audio. Okay. HTML global attribute content editable is used to update content, specifies context, specifies whether content should be editable or not. I have no idea. Let's do this one. In HTML, onBlur and onFocus are style attributes. OnBlur, onFocus. They're HTML attributes. Graphics defined by SVG in which format? XML. Html Canvas element is used to draw graphics. In HTML, which attribute is used to specify that an input field must be filled out? Required. Which input type defines a slider control range? Which HTML element is used to display a scalar measurement within a range? Range? What? Range. Pretty sure. Which HTML element defines navigation links? Nav. In HTML, what does the aside element define? Oh no. Content aside from the page content? Probably. It's this one is a semantic one, so it doesn't really do much. Yeah, let's do that one. Which HTML element is used to specify a header for a document or section? Header. Yes. There we go. I got 37 out of 40. Yay. I got 92%. Let's check my answers, because you always got to check your answers. Alright, so I got those right. Let's see which ones I got wrong. This one, block elements. Yeah, that one I kind of knew I fucked up on. It should be false. Block elements are normally displayed without starting a new line. That is false. They do start a new line usually. Alright. In HTML, onBlur and onFocus are actually event attributes. Alright. I didn't know that. Which HTML element is used to display a scalar measurement within a range? I guess it is meter. Didn't know that either. Alright, but most of them I got correct. So there's that quiz. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!